let's talk about something that many people deeply misunderstand without realizing it. The idea that being kind is always the right thing to do. You've probably been told countless times that kindness is a great virtue, that turning the other cheek is noble, and that being patient and gentle is a mark of good character. And yes, in most cases, especially with balanced, respectful people, that's completely true. But here's the issue. A narcissist doesn't think or act within that same moral or emotional framework. Your kindness toward a narcissist isn't received as a loving or generous act. They see it as a signal, a sign that you're willing to surrender, to let them have control. And once they sense that, the whole dynamic shifts completely. There's no going back from it. To a narcissist, every relationship is a kind of hierarchy. It's not about connection or teamwork. It's about control and domination. They don't want closeness. They want power. So when you're kind, forgiving, or patient with them, they don't think, wow, this person is so understanding. Instead, they think, good, I've got them where I want them. That's not paranoia or exaggeration. It's psychological fact. Narcissism at its core is a disorder built to protect a broken sense of self. They cover up deep insecurity and emptiness with a fake, inflated image that demands constant attention and praise to survive, and your kindness feeds that hunger. To them, your niceness is fuel. It's what they live on. This is where it becomes dangerous because your natural instincts as a decent person will push you to give chances, to assume the best in others, to calm arguments, and to show understanding. Those instincts usually serve you well in life, but in the narcissist world, they become your downfall. They use your kindness as a tool. They exploit the gap between what you assume people value, honesty, respect, empathy, and what they actually value, which is manipulation and control. You think you're building trust and connection, but they're studying you, learning where you're weak, what makes you doubt yourself, and how to push your buttons. That's why people trapped in narcissistic relationships, whether romantic, professional, or family, often feel so confused and mentally torn apart. You keep thinking, if I just love them enough, if I'm patient and kind, they'll finally see I'm different and start treating me better. But what's really happening is that they're taking your kindness as proof that you'll put up with more mistreatment. Every act of forgiveness confirms to them that they can get away with more next time. There's a psychological concept called intermittent reinforcement. It means that inconsistent rewards, sometimes nice behavior, sometimes cruelty, actually strengthen the pattern of attachment more than steady kindness does. Narcissists are experts at this. They give you little bits of attention and affection, just enough to keep you hooked and hopeful. The more love and energy you pour in, the more they take. And they won't stop because from their point of view, the system works perfectly in their favor. People often ask, but isn't it mean to stop being kind? Doesn't everyone deserve compassion? And my answer is this: kindness without boundaries isn't compassion. It's self-betrayal. When you continue to be kind to someone who lies, manipulates, and hurts you, you're not being virtuous. You're enabling their behavior. And that's a tough truth to face. If your kindness constantly ends up hurting you, it's no longer real goodness. It's na-vedi-a. And even worse, it strengthens the very dysfunction you're trying to fix. There's also a deeper question hiding underneath all this. At what point does compassion stop being strength and start being fear? When does refusing to call someone out for destructive behavior stop being noble and become self-destructive? Anyone involved with a narcissist eventually has to face this truth. Being nice in that context isn't moral. It's avoidance. You're not keeping the peace. You're avoiding conflict because you're scared. Scared of rejection, of being alone, or of being seen as the bad one. And narcissists can sense that fear instantly. They can smell it like blood in the water. Remember this clearly. You are not required to be kind to someone who keeps hurting you. Respect must go both ways. Empathy must be mutual. Otherwise, what you have isn't a relationship. It's a performance. And every time you choose being nice over being honest, you're helping them keep that performance going. They stay in control of the story, and you keep clapping, hoping they'll eventually change the script. But they won't, because the story was never about truth. It was always about control. You were never born to be someone's emotional battery, to be drained and discarded. You were made to live a life rooted in self-respect, clear boundaries, and truth. The first step is recognizing that some people don't see your kindness as love. They see it as weakness. To them, it's an opening, an opportunity to dominate and deceive. That's why you must stop being overly nice to narcissists. Instead, be honest, be firm, be ready to walk away. Real strength isn't how long you can endure mistreatment. It's your ability to choose yourself over their lies. And that is the most moral act of all. Now, let's look at something more subtle and equally dangerous. Empathy, the very trait we're all taught to develop. The ability to feel what another person feels, to understand their emotions. Empathy is a cornerstone of decency. Without it, humanity would collapse into cruelty. But like any good thing, empathy without limits can become dangerous. Narcissists understand this in a way you might not. Most people assume empathy is always noble, but empathy is only noble when it's guided by truth and balance. Narcissists don't see empathy as something sacred. They see it as something they can use. Your ability to care, to forgive, to see their pain becomes their greatest weapon. They use your empathy like a puppeteer pulls strings. They learn your emotional patterns, not by deep reflection, but by instinct. They watch how you react. They notice when you hesitate, when you feel guilty, when you say things like, I just want peace, or maybe I overreacted. Every time you question yourself, instead of holding them accountable, they take note. They build a mental playbook of your weaknesses. That's why this type of manipulation is so devastating. You're not being taken advantage of because you're weak. You're being taken advantage of because you care deeply. Because your empathy makes you want to help, to heal, to make things better. You think, if I can just show them love and understanding, maybe they'll stop hurting me. But that's the trap. The narcissist doesn't want healing. They want power. They tell half-truths, twist stories, and make you feel sorry for them. They pretend to be victims of everyone else's cruelty, not because it's true, but because it activates your compassion. And once you feel sorry for them, they have control. You stop seeing their actions clearly. You start defending them. You start explaining away behavior that's actually abusive. This is why so many survivors of narcissistic abuse feel so confused and guilty. They start doubting their own memory, questioning their emotions, even apologizing for setting boundaries. That confusion isn't random. It's the result of empathy being weaponized against you. The narcissist uses your very humanity as a form of control. By the time you realize what's happening, you're drained, exhausted, and still being told you're not doing enough. Here's the truth. When your empathy overrides your judgment, you become part of your own mistreatment. This isn't about blaming the victim. It's about recognizing the pattern so you can escape it. You are not required to understand someone who keeps using your kindness against you. You do not owe patience to someone who treats it as permission to keep crossing your boundaries. Empathy without limits leads to dependency. It traps you in a cycle where your identity becomes tied to fixing someone else's pain. That's not compassion, it's self-erasure. And the narcissist thrives in that world. The more you lose yourself, the more power they gain. It's like emotional colonization. Your energy fuels their dysfunction. So what's the healthy alternative? It's not shutting down emotionally or becoming cold. It's learning to practice wise empathy with boundaries, compassion that includes you. The next time you feel pulled into a narcissist's drama through guilt or pity, stop and ask yourself, whose needs are being met here? Is this exchange fair, or am I being manipulated into playing a role in their story? When you shift from blind empathy to discerning empathy, everything changes. You begin to see that some people don't actually want understanding, they want control. And once you accept that, you stop wasting energy trying to make them see your side. You stop trying to fix them, because you realize they already understand your pain. They just don't care. And that realization, while painful at first, becomes your liberation. Because once you understand that your empathy and kindness have been used as tools against you, you can reclaim them. You can still be kind, but now it's on your terms with your boundaries intact. You can still care, but only for those who respect and reciprocate that care. That's when your empathy becomes strength again. Not a weakness, not a weapon in someone else's hands, but a reflection of your true moral power. The hard truth is this: the narcissist isn't lost or confused. They're not broken in a way that love or patience can fix. They're calculated. They know exactly what they're doing. They've realized that your kindness and empathy are powerful tools, perfect for keeping you hooked while they keep manipulating you from behind a mask of innocence and victimhood. But once you start taking back your empathy and mixing it with awareness, something changes. You take away their power. You stop playing the role they gave you. And you become something much, much more dangerous to them than an enemy. You become someone they can't control anymore. Let's talk about what people call being nice. Because most of us were taught that being nice automatically means being good. But that's not true. Being nice, especially when it's done out of habit or fear, can actually be one of the riskiest traits to have, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. When you're nice to a narcissist, you're not showing them goodness. You're showing them compliance. You're basically saying you're willing to ignore your own values, your own instincts, even your self-respect, just to keep the peace or hold the relationship together. And they notice that. They sense it. Most importantly, they use it to their advantage. People with narcissistic traits see life as a power game. In their world, or there are only two types of people: those who control and those who are controlled, those who serve and those who are served. Power means everything, and control is the reward. So when you enter that dynamic with soft boundaries, open hands, and a deep need to please, you're not fixing the power imbalance. You're feeding it. You're confirming to them without saying a word that they're the one in charge, not you. And the more you go along, the worse it gets. It rarely begins with open cruelty. Often it starts small with little requests, guilt trips that sound like emotional needs, manipulations that are easy to miss. Because you're nice and you don't want to upset anyone. You give in over and over again. You take the criticism. You excuse the gaslighting. You swallow your anger and call it patience. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace, but what you're really doing is helping their system grows stronger. A narcissist's entire control system depends on your silence, your willingness to sacrifice yourself, your ability to carry their emotional chaos. Every time you choose being nice over being honest, a part of you fades. Your voice, your needs, your personality, they all slowly wear down under the weight of keeping the illusion alive. And that illusion is meant to keep you in your place. You might think, but what's wrong with being nice? The real issue is this: nice people often confuse kindness with avoidance. They think that if they can just stay calm and not make waves, the narcissist will calm down too. But narcissists don't care about calm. They care about control. They don't respond to peace. They respond to boundaries and consequences. They actually respect, in their twisted way, the person who stops playing their game, the one who refuses to enable bad behavior, the one who says no and sticks to it. Being nice often becomes a mask, a way to hide fear, a way to avoid hard conversations, a way to run from standing up for yourself. It's easier to pretend that love can fix someone than to accept that some people don't want to be helped. They want to dominate. And if you keep bringing softness when strength is what's needed, you're not helping them change. You're helping them continue. What's needed isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's not about being aggressive. It's about being firm. Setting boundaries doesn't make you unkind. It's a statement that you respect yourself. And when you shift from being nice to being truthful, from being passive to being grounded, the narcissist will notice. They'll try harder to pull you back in because their power is slipping. Their control is breaking. That's when things usually get worse for a bit, when their mask comes off, their anger shows, and their manipulation gets louder. And in those moments, you'll feel the old pull, the need to smooth things over, to be nice again, to avoid the storm. Mm-hmm. But that feeling isn't love. It's conditioning. It's your nervous system trying to return to what's familiar. And the only way to break that pattern is to understand that your niceness never kept the peace. It only delayed the fight. What you need instead of niceness is courage, the kind that lets you face conflict in order to stay true to yourself. It's about learning to handle discomfort in the name of integrity. That's what narcissists truly fear. Not your anger, but your awareness. They fear your choice to stop playing along, to stop giving them your energy, to stop bending yourself just to keep them comfortable. So next time you feel that urge to stay quiet, to smile when you want to scream, to explain yourself over and over, hoping they'll finally understand, take a breath and ask yourself, am I choosing peace, or am I letting myself be controlled? Because once you stop feeding the narcissist with your niceness, once you start drawing real boundaries, calmly, confidently, that's when the power truly shifts. One of the biggest lies many of us grew up with is that being nice means being good. That if you smile, agree, and never make anyone uncomfortable, you're doing the right thing. But that's not real virtue. That's just fear wearing a friendly face. In reality, what we often call being nice is just a disguise for fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of not being liked. Let's be real. Most people who act nice, even when they're being mistreated, aren't doing it because they're angels. They're doing it because they're scared of being alone, scared of being judged. Scared of what might happen if they finally speak up. And when you're with a narcissist, whether it's a romantic partner, a family member, or even a boss, that fear becomes the core of the relationship. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a battle of two emotional systems. The narcissist needs control and validation. You crave peace, connection, and approval. And when those two collide, you give while they take, and the imbalance grows fast. Your fear of saying no becomes the very thing that gives them all the power. And here's the sad part. This doesn't happen because you're too kind. It happens because your sense of self-worth is tied to other people's approval. That's codependency. It's when your inner stability depends on someone else's acceptance. But that isn't compassion. That's self-abandonment disguised as loyalty. You tell yourself you're being loving by staying quiet, by fixing what isn't your fault, by taking the blame just to keep things smooth. But really, you're fading away piece by piece. That's not noble. It's not selfless. It's a slow form of disappearing from your own life. Belief narcissists are very good at spotting people like this. They can tell who will shrink, who will carry the emotional weight, who will say sorry first. They don't admire that. They exploit it. To them, your inability to set boundaries doesn't show kindness. It shows usefulness. You're valuable when you obey, disposable when you don't. So let's be honest, being agreeable when the moment calls for strength isn't moral. It's a sign that your sense of self was probably shaped by early experiences, maybe in a home where love had conditions, where peace mattered more than truth. Back then, being nice wasn't a choice. It was survival. But as an adult, that old strategy stops protecting you. It starts trapping you. That's why people in relationships with narcissists often feel confused. They think, I was kind, patient, forgiving. Why didn't it work? But the truth is, a narcissist doesn't respect those traits. They see them as weakness. They respect one thing, strength. Niceness, especially the kind that comes from fear, looks like weakness to them. To break free, you don't need to become cold or cruel. You just need to get real. Be honest about why you fear conflict. Be honest about how much energy you waste keeping others comfortable. Be honest about how long you've lived managing someone else's emotions instead of expressing your own truth. True kindness is never blind. Real niceness is a choice that comes with boundaries. That's grace. But niceness that comes automatically from fear, that's not kindness. That's survival. It might have protected you once, but now it's the very thing that's keeping you from living honestly. So the question isn't, A, am I being nice? The question is, A, am I being real? Are you standing in truth with the courage to say, I won't lose myself just to make you comfortable? Because when you stop hiding your fear behind niceness, when you stop believing that compliance will buy love, something amazing happens. You get yourself back. You start owning your voice, your time, your boundaries, your dignity. You stop being a background character in someone else's story and start being the author of your own. And yes, the narcissist will notice. They'll get angry. They'll say you've changed, that you're selfish or cold. But that's not proof you're wrong. That's proof you're growing. That's proof the old power game is breaking. The truth is, one, your niceness was never your shield. It was your cage. It didn't protect you. It only delayed the moment you'd have to face the truth. And the day you finally choose courage over comfort, that's the day real healing starts. That's the day you stop surviving and start living.